Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy? Sports and Fitness Rants. I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back, man. Got another great video for you guys today, as usual, man. You guys know the deal on this channel. It's all about setting the record straight, stopping the lies, stopping the narratives, guys. You guys know that, man. And in this video, man, this is a requested video. Shout out to my man, Vernon Lee Warren. Hope I'm saying your name right. You have been a true supporter of my channel, man. Always leaving me comments. Just always got nice things to say, man. Like I said, and he requested a video about the Hall of Fame, the Basketball Hall of Fame. And we're going to talk about this video, man, because the basketball, I'm confused. I don't understand or get the Basketball Hall of Fame. It makes no sense to me, man. The guys that are in, the guys that aren't in, the guys that might be able to get in. I'm confused, man. And we're going to talk about this video. So once again, shout out to my man, Vernon Lee Warren. Thank you for all your support, man. I'm truly humbled, guys. To everybody out there, man, everyone across the world and everyone across the states, man. Thank you very much, guys. I'm truly humbled, man. Like I said, all the guys who comment and share their stories, like I said, it means a lot. Thank you, guys. And you guys know what to do. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So, yes, guys, like I said, shout out to my man Vernon Lee Warren, who requested this video about the Basketball Hall of Fame and how it's become, almost a joke, whereas now it seems like anyone can get in the Hall of Fame. But it's confusing to me, and I don't seem to get it. It makes no sense. Some of the guys that have gotten in over the last, 5 years or so, and some of the guys who are still not in. I don't know, man. And listen, and we're going to go over some names here in this video. Because one thing we must understand, right? And I've made this mistake myself in the past. It's the Basketball Hall of Fame, right? Not the NBA Hall of Fame. Sometimes I forget that it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not the NBA Hall of Fame. Because let's be honest here, guys. When we're talking about Hall of Famers, we're talking about NBA Hall of Famers, man. We're not talking about international players or, people who were contributors, people in the Hall of Fame for being contributors, right? And things of that nature. We're talking about the NBA players, man. I'm talking about NBA guys in this video, but it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. And that's the one thing that we must remember about Basketball Hall of Fame, right? It's the Basketball Hall of Fame. So it encompasses college and international play, and all of this stuff goes into, your resume or on your resume for Basketball Hall of Fame, right? People think about Tony Kukoc a lot as a Hall of Famer, and he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame as far as his international play is concerned. But he's not an NBA Hall of Famer. He's a Basketball Hall of Famer. All right, guys? There should be a distinction. There needs to be a distinction here. There is not one, but there needs to be one. Because once again, this is where the NBA confuses me. I'm confused by the Basketball Hall of Fame because there are guys to me that have NBA Hall of Fame careers or are close or maybe NBA Hall of Fame careers, but they're not in. And then there are people who, to me, did not have NBA-worthy Hall of Fame careers, but they got in the Hall of Fame. So let's talk about this now. And this is why it's confusing. So, for me, you guys know on this channel, Kevin Johnson, I don't know why he's not in the Hall of Fame. It doesn't make any sense to me, guys. I wrote down some names. Just once again, it's off the top of my head, guys that I've thought about from either the 80s or the 90s, or guys that played in both eras that I thought of off the top of my head that, to me, not saying they were certified or surefire Hall of Famers, but they have an argument to be in the Hall of Fame based off of people who are in the Hall of Fame. So, like I said, Kevin Johnson, to me, should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know how he's not in. Once again, I don't know if this is a personal thing with Kevin Johnson, if he's been blackballed from the Basketball Hall of Fame. But anyone that has watched the 80s and 90s era of NBA basketball, then Kevin Johnson should be in the Hall of Fame. And once again, this is not a reach or a stretch. Kevin Johnson, one of the top point guards of the 90s, one of the great point guards in the history of the game, guys. This man should be in the Hall of Fame. Believe he was a 5-time All-NBA player. I think his career average is like 17 points a game, 9 assists. It's crazy to me, man, that Kevin Johnson not in the Hall of Fame, guys. And one of the things that bothered me over the last several years, I told you guys that are getting in over the last 5 years, it's been weird to me. Tim Hardaway got in. Now, I'm not saying that Tim Hardaway is not a Hall of Famer, but to me, Kevin Johnson was just greater. He was a better player. That's to me. Also, Chauncey Billups. How the hell did Chauncey Billups get in? I did a video about this, but Kevin Johnson's not in the Hall of Fame. Once again, makes you scratch your head. Right? Does that make any sense to you? That Chauncey Billups, Tim Hardaway in the Hall of Fame, but Kevin Johnson's not. Not. Come on, man. And I respect these guys. Chauncey Billups, I respect him. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, though. I don't think he belongs in the Hall of Fame. Tim Hardaway, yeah, you can say he's a Hall of Fame player. Chauncey Billups, not saying he wasn't a good player or an impact player or doesn't deserve to be in the Detroit Pistons Ring of Honor, any of that stuff. I don't think he was a Hall of Famer, though. Especially Kevin Johnson is not in the Hall of Fame. How the hell is Chauncey Billups in the Hall of Fame, man? Once again, this is what makes you, it doesn't make any sense. Also, we're talking about point guards right now. I saw something about Kyle Lowry having like 85% chance, this guy, guys, of getting in the Hall of Fame. Kyle Lowry has like an 85 or 87% probability of getting into the Hall of Fame. Kyle Lowry? Kyle Lowry? Is Kyle Lowry greater than Kevin Johnson, the point guard position? No, not even close. As far as maybe I'm missing some of Kyle Lowry here, guys, but I don't think this dude's a Hall of Famer. But he's at an 87% chance? Where the hell's Kevin Johnson at? It don't make no sense, man. How about Mark Price? Another name that I wrote down off the top of my head. Mark Price, to me, is a borderline Hall of Famer. That's saying, like, to me, Kevin Johnson is a certified Hall of Famer. Mark Price, to me, is borderline. He's borderline Hall of Fame. I told you, he was that next tier point guard. Right after Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson and John Stockton and Gary Payton and, those kinds of guys, you had the Mark Prices. Or after Kevin Johnson, you had the Mark Prices and the Terry Porters, the Mark Jacksons, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, some of these other point guards that were not as great as the top guys, but they were right there. And Mark Price, to me, I believe he was a four-time All-Star, maybe four-time All-NBA. Mark Price might have even made an All-NBA team above Isaiah Thomas at one point. I can't remember. Maybe it was 91 or something like that. But Mark Price, to me, like I said, borderline Hall of Famer. The injuries kind of derailed. He was definitely a surefire Hall of Famer without the injuries. The injuries kind of derailed him from playing or reaching the max for his career. But to me, once again, Chauncey Billups is in. Mark Price, you could kind of make an argument. As I say, it doesn't make any sense. How can Chauncey Billups be in, but Mark Price is not in? Mark Price, like I said, man, I'm trying to remember his averages. He might have averaged something like 14 or 15 points a game at his best, maybe 17, 18 points a game at his best, about 7, 8, 9 assists at his best, Mark Price, like an 18-8 guy. And he was a money shooter. I mean, this dude was one of the great shooters, pure shooters. History of the game, guys. I believe he led the NBA in free throw percentage off 3 or 4 times, if I'm not mistaken. He might be in the top 3 in free throw percentage for his career. The dude was a knockdown shooter, Mark Price. Just a knockdown shooter, man. And a really solid floor general, like I said, for those Cleveland Cavaliers in the late 80s into the early 90s. Mark Price was so good, in fact, that the Cleveland Cavaliers had Kevin Johnson, who I just told you was a surefire Hall of Famer. They had Kevin Johnson and Mark Price on the same roster. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they drafted him in the same year. I can't remember the same year, the year after. But they had both of them on the roster on Cleveland. They traded Kevin Johnson and kept Mark Price. That's how good Mark Price was. So like I said, the injuries kind of derailed him. But you're going to sit there and tell me that Mark Price is not a Hall of Fame, but Chauncey Billups is? And once again, I'm not taking away from Chauncey Billups and saying there's a travesty that he's in. Once again, this is why the NBA Hall of Fame, or the Basketball Hall of Fame, doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't add up. I saw, once again, Kyle Lowry. Give me Mark Price over Kyle Lowry. These are point guards. I wrote these names down, but I'm trying to do it by position here. How about Shawn Kemp? Is Shawn Kemp a Hall of Famer to you guys? To me, once again, Shawn Kemp has an argument to be in the Hall of Fame. If you go from about 1990 to about 1997, I want to say 98, you're talking about a 7-8 year window. Shawn Kemp, dude was crazy, man. Crazy. Even the first year in Cleveland, he was still good. We all know what the problem for, Shawn Kemp was. The drugs and things off the court derailed him. Once again, he would have been a surefire Hall of Famer if he would have had maybe another 3 more solid seasons of adding on to his career. But to me, if you take Shawn Kemp's best 7 years, that 7-year stretch, like I said, from like 90 to 97, I think you could argue Shawn Kemp is a Hall of Famer, man. One of the elite in-game dunkers, really a solid shot blocker, solid rebounder at that power forward position. Like I said, just one of the great athletes in the NBA's history at that power forward position, man. One of the great players in the 90s, man, as far as I'm concerned. So, Shawn Kemp, I mean, they have Kevin Love. I saw Kevin Love's Hall of Fame probability. And I think it was at 80% or somewhere around there. It was pretty high. Once again, not saying that Kevin Love's not a Hall of Famer or he doesn't deserve to be mentioned for a Hall of Fame or any of this stuff. But I would take Shawn Kemp over Kevin Love. Obviously, Kevin Love's a greater, knockdown shooter from the perimeter. And he's a really solid rebounder. You could probably say it's an even as far as rebounding goes. Because Shawn Kemp was an underrated rebounder because he was able to use his quick jumping ability, his athleticism to rebound the basketball and to block shots. So, to me, Shawn Kemp was a greater defensive player, obviously, than a Kevin Love. And the athlete, Kevin Love's nowhere close to the athlete. So, I mean, when we're talking about these overall games, and Kevin Love has a high odds to make the Hall of Fame, but Shawn Kemp's not in the Hall of Fame, I don't know, man. Shawn Kemp, I believe, is a 6-time All-Star. I can't remember what his career numbers are. Maybe 16 points a game or something like that, 8 rebounds or something like that. Like I said, to me, Shawn Kemp has an argument for a Hall of Fame player. When you think about his impact, his game, like I said, for that 7 to 8 years there, the dude was better than some of these other guys, that have high probabilities of getting the Hall of Fame. And some of the guys that are in the Hall of Fame. Shawn Kemp has an argument there, I think, man. How about Brad Daugherty, Mark Price's teammate from those Cavaliers teams, Michael Jordan's teammate from North Carolina. Brad Daugherty was the #1 pick in the 1986 draft, the year after Michael Jordan was the #3 pick, right? So you had Michael Jordan, Sam Perkins, and Brad Daugherty, all on the same team, right? I think Sam Perkins came out the year before Michael Jordan, maybe. And then you had Michael Jordan, and then you had Brad Daugherty come out. So Brad Daugherty was the #1 pick, 1986 draft for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Then I believe they drafted Mark Price maybe a year or two later, whatever the case may be. But Brad Daugherty, once again, I believe he has career averages of almost 20 and 10. I think it's like 19 and 9.8 or something like that, his career averages. Now, I believe he only played about 7 or 8 seasons because he ended up having a bad back injury, and I believe that was the end of his career, this back injury that I believe was a back injury that he had that basically end his career. But for about, like I said, 7 seasons, Brad Daugherty, man, was legit one of the best centers in the league. Right? He was right there that next tier. No, he wasn't like, a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Moses Malone or, Hakeem Olajuwon or a Patrick Ewing or, you know what I'm saying? Some of these kinds of guys, a David Robinson. But Brad Daugherty was like that next tier of guy, man. You know what I'm saying? And he was a solid quality player for those Cleveland Cavaliers. This is why the Cleveland Cavaliers were supposed to be the next team up. You had a #1 draft pick in Brad Daugherty, right? You had a great coach in Lenny Wilkins. You had a really good point guard in Mark Price. You had a scrappy, hard-nosed, grit guy like Craig Elo. You brought in a young high flyer like Ron Harper on that team. You had the glue guys around you like Larry Nance and Hot Rod Williams. They were a good team, man. They were formidable. And Brad Daugherty, to me, is a borderline Hall of Famer. If you just base off his best years, like he had like a good 6-7 year run there from like I said, from like 88 to like 96 or 95, whatever it was, and he ended up having the back injuries. He had about a good 6-7 year stretch there, man. He was a good player. I want to say, I can't remember, a couple All-Star appearances for Brad Daugherty. But once again, Brad Daugherty, one of those guys that, like I said, you could argue that maybe he deserves some kind of recognition or, mention for a Hall of Fame when you see some of these other guys and their percentages or their probability to get in the Hall of Fame now. It's crazy. How about Larry Nance, another teammate, Larry Nance? I wrote this down here. Larry Nance, 17 points per game. I believe 8 rebounds a game. Larry Nance, to me, one of the great shot blockers at that power forward position. He might be the greatest shot blocker, greatest shot blocking power forward in the history of the game. I believe the man averaged 3 shot blocks a game one year. Always right around a block or 2 blocks a game, 2.5 blocks a game. Larry Nance, man. We all know about Larry Nance, the high flyer, won a slam dunk contest. Like I said, a true high flyer. But Larry Nance had a very good game. Nice all-around game around the rim, man. Right about 10 to 12 feet. Could put it in the hole. Solid rebound at that power forward position. Like I said, he was one of those glue guys, man. A great competitor for the Phoenix Suns. I believe he played about 7 years for the Phoenix Suns and about 7 or 8 years for the Cleveland Cavaliers. When they were going against those Chicago Bulls, man. Larry Nance, I believe, was 3-time All-Star, but 3 times All-Defensive Team, I believe. Like I said, one of the elite shot blockers of the power forward position, Larry Nance, man. So shout out to him. Is he a certified Hall of Famer? No, he's not. I'm not saying any of these guys, except for, to me, Kevin Johnson's a certified Hall of Famer. These other guys, Shawn Kemp, he pretty much is. Mark Price, these guys are questionable. Brad Daugherty, because, they didn't have the amount of games, the years. But if you look at the quality of their years, these guys were right there, man. Larry Nance, this guy was right there. So, like, let's think about something like Draymond Green. They'll say that Draymond Green is a certified Hall of Famer now. In this era, Draymond Green's a Hall of Famer because he has a Defensive Player of the Year award. He won some championships on the Golden State Warriors. But I don't believe that Draymond Green's a Hall of Famer. I don't believe he's a Hall of Famer. Is he going to get in? Probably. So that's the thing. So you'll put Draymond Green in, but Kevin Johnson's not in. Brad Daugherty's not in. Larry Nance is not in. Mark Price is not in. Like I said, Chauncey Billups is in. It don't make any sense. Remember, they were arguing for Jrue Holiday. I saw when the Boston Celtics won the championship, I saw a lot of Jrue Holiday stuff going around. And one of the biggest things they were saying was Jrue Holiday is now a Hall of Famer with this another championship on his belt. They made it seem like he won the Finals MVP because he had a great series. He played really good in the series, but he wasn't the Finals MVP. He wasn't the star of the team. He didn't lead them to the promised land. But they'll say that Jrue Holiday's now a Hall of Famer. Jrue Holiday, he's better than Mark Price or Sean Kemp. He's greater than they were, or better than they were at their peaks. Kevin Johnson. How about Alvin Robertson? Alvin Robertson, who no one ever talks about, right? Because he played in that defensive 80s and 90s era with other great shooting guards like Michael Jordan, Clyde Drexler, Reggie Miller, Mitch Richmond, right? They forget about someone like Alvin Robertson, who, like I said, I believe he came in the same year as Michael Jordan, if I'm not mistaken, either the year after or the same year as Michael Jordan. And Alvin Robertson won a Defensive Player of the Year award. I believe he's a 6-time All-Defensive Team member. I think he made like 4 All-Star teams. That sounds like a pretty Hall of Fame resume career to me. I think he has averages of like 14 points a game or 15 points a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Right? He has the highest single season steal average in NBA's history. Alvin Robertson. Like I said, one of the great defensive shooting guards in the history of the game, man. Right? He was overshadowed, like I said, by guys like Michael Cooper, Michael Jordan, Sidney Moncrief, Clyde Drexler, the Reggie Millers. Like, these are the great shooting guards at that mid to late 80s into the 90s. And Alvin Robertson just gets lost in the shuffle with these great players. But Alvin Robertson would be a terror on defense in this era with those big, strong hands he had, the quick hands, the instincts of Alvin Robertson. The guy was able to pressure the ball. One of the great defenders of the perimeter of that era. 6 all-defensive teams, 3-time All-Star. You could argue he's a Hall of Famer, but he's not in the Hall of Fame. I believe he won a Most Improved Player also, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he was Most Improved Player Award. Once again, Alvin Robertson, but they'll tell you Kyle Lowry could get in the Hall of Fame, or Jrue Holiday can get in the Hall of Fame. They don't have the resumes of an Alvin Robertson. Tim Hardaway's in the Hall of Fame. Chauncey Billups in the Hall of Fame. They're talking about Kevin Love going in the Hall of Fame. I wrote down some of these names of some of the guys that are like the high probability to make a Hall of Fame that are current players. Klay Thompson, he's on there too, high probability for Hall of Fame. I'm not saying Klay Thompson is not a Hall of Famer, but once again, what has Klay Thompson accomplished individually on his resume? His resume is not stacked. He's like, oh man, he's a surefire Hall of Famer. He was on a great team. He played with some great players, and he was a great a member, right? He was a key integral member of those wars. I'm not taking anything away from Klay Thompson, man. One of the great shooters. But he's not greater than Kevin Johnson. He's not, guys. He's not. Was he greater than Sean Kemp? Once again, like, come on, man, the peaks. Come on. How about Sean Elliott? Not saying once again that Sean Elliott's a Hall of Famer, but Sean Elliott was a really good player, man, in the 90s, alongside David Robinson on the San Antonio Spurs. All those years, played for San Antonio Spurs for like, what, 12 seasons, whatever it was. Sean Elliott, he was like a lesser version of like a Scottie Pippen, right? He was a better shooter than Scottie Pippen, wasn't quite the athlete of Scottie Pippen, but like I said, he was a better shooter, wasn't the playmaker, wasn't the defender, obviously, of Scottie Pippen, but he was like a lesser version of Scottie Pippen, man, with a better jump shot. But Sean Elliott, man, a really solid player. Not saying he's a Hall of Famer, but once again, you're letting if Kyle Lowry's in, or gets in, I mean, what are we doing here, man? Sean Elliott, I believe he made a couple All-Star games in his career. How about Glenn Rice? Is Glenn Rice a Hall of Famer? 3-time All-Star Game MVP? Glenn Rice. I mean, I don't know, guys. I believe he has averages of 18 points a game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. I don't know if he's a 3-point champion, 3-point shooting champion or not. But Glenn Rice, man, one of the great shooters at that small forward position in the history of the game, man. Just a great shooter, man. Right, the smooth stroke of Glenn Rice. I believe he was an NBA champion with the 2000 Lakers. If I remember correctly, I believe he won on one of the Lakers teams. But once again, 18 points a game for Glenn Rice. Is Glenn Rice a Hall of Famer? You tell me. Some of these other guys are in, or they might get in. They have a high chance of getting in, but no Glenn Rice. Glenn Rice is not in there. Once again, I'm not saying these guys are definite Hall of Famers. What I'm saying is that you don't know what the Basketball Hall of Fame, what's the criteria? You don't know. It makes no sense. How about Buck Williams? You guys remember Buck Williams? Played for the New Jersey Nets. Played for the Portland Trail Blazers for some years. He was on that 92 Trailblazer team that went to the finals against the Bulls. Buck Williams, man, one of the really solid defensive power forwards of that era. Just a gritty, hard-nosed guy, man. I believe he averages 12 and 10 for his career. I believe he was a 3-time All-Star, 4 times All-Defensive Team. I believe he won Rookie of the Year, if I remember correctly, guys. If I'm not, man, you guys can check me on some of this stuff. But I believe he won a Rookie of the Year award. And like I said, just a solid two-way player, man. Like I said, he'd give you about 12 to 15 points a game, anywhere from like 10 to 12 rebounds. Just a solid rebounder, man. To me, he was a little bit better version of a Charles Oakley, right? He'd give you a little bit more offense than a Charles Oakley, but same kind of play, maybe a little bit better of defensive player. Buck Williams, more consistent. Just like I said, just a little bit better. So shout out to Buck Williams. Once again, not saying that he's a certified Hall of Fame or he should be in the Hall of Fame. He's robbed of the Hall of Fame. But once again, you're telling me some of these other guys could get in, but Buck Williams is not a Hall of Famer? It's questionable, guys. These are some good players. The thing about it was they played in an era with some great, great players. Like I said, some of these guys, how about Tom Chambers? I wrote his name down here too. Tom Chambers, who I believe has a career average of 18 points a game. 4-time All-Star. I believe he was an All-Star game MVP. Tom Chambers was on the Phoenix Suns team that went to the finals in 93. I believe he played for the Sonics before that. But Tom Chambers, I believe he was in a dunk contest. Real, one of the great dunkers of that era, Tom Chambers, man. A white boy would get up on you. Like 6'10", I think he was. Tom Chambers, nice stroke, solid all-around player. Once again, not saying he's a certified Hall of Famer or any of these things, but if you're going to have some of these other guys get in, I mean, the man's a 4-time All-Star. This is what I'm saying. So these are names, those are names I wrote down, guys. Man, I know this video went kind of long, and maybe you guys agree with me, maybe you don't agree with me. But to me, the first thing we must remember is the Basketball Hall of Fame, not the NBA Hall of Fame. But the second thing is also, when we're talking about NBA basketball players, it's their NBA careers that get them in the Hall of Fame. So it's the NBA Hall of Famers that we're talking about in the video here. Not college Hall of Famers or guys who are contributors or international players. We're talking about guys making the Hall of Fame or having really high odds of making the Hall of Fame when I don't really see it. Once again, Jrue Holiday, the Hall of Fame used to be for the top of the top guys. And I think that's what my man Vernon Lee Warren really wanted me to get across here. Is the Hall of Fame has lost its luster over the years because you're allowing lesser guys in. I mean, look at guys getting their jerseys with numbers retired now. They're retiring jerseys for role players. Udonis Haslem? Come on, man. And some of these guys who have gotten to the Hall of Fame, it don't add up to me. Once again, I'm not saying that some of the guys I mentioned, like Tim Hardaway or Chauncey Billups, they should not be in. Or that, it's a travesty that they are in. But if they're in, some of these other guys, they have to be in. Kevin Johnson has to be in if Chauncey Billups is in. If Tim Hardaway is in, he has to be in. If Jrue Holiday is going to get in, some of these other guys got to get in. If Draymond Green's getting in, some of these other guys Sean Kemp's got to get in, man. If Jimmy Butler gets in, let's say, his high odds to get in, Sean Kemp should get in. Mark Price, Alvin Robertson, Kyle Lowry gets in, these guys should get in. Once again, you've lowered the standard. The NBA has lowered the standard. So now since you've done that, you have to go back now and do some research on these guys and get some of these other guys in. That's what you guys got to do, man. Those are the facts, man. So shout out to my man Vernon Lee Warren once again for requesting the Hall of Fame video. I hope I did your video justice. I hope I mentioned some of the things you were hoping I mentioned. And we all know that the Basketball Hall of Fame has become a joke over the last 5 or 6 years. They're not keeping the same standard. They're not keeping the same energy. And now you have guys in the Hall of Fame or guys that might make the Hall of Fame or have high odds of making the Hall of Fame when you have other guys that should have been in or have a chance to get in, but they're not in. And I'm going to end it on Kevin Johnson once again. Guys, Kevin Johnson should be in there, man. Kevin Johnson should be in there. Some of those other guys mentioned, they have arguments. Sean Kemp, Alvin Robertson. These guys have arguments. Mark Price. You guys know the deal, man. I'll catch you guys on the next one.